Royal Rota, the weekly podcast from ITV on all things royal, and you can catch us on YouTube or your favourite podcast platforms. And regular viewers of the show will notice that there is quite a big difference this week, and that is that Chris isn't here. He is taking a week off, and so I have been handed the reins for the week, and I'm delighted to say that I'm joined by someone that needs very little introduction, and that is the Sun's royal photographer, Arthur Edwards. Arthur, thank you so much for joining me.
It's a pleasure, Lizzie. It's an absolute pleasure.
So it's been a fairly quiet week on the royal front this week. So rather than rattling through the news agenda, it's a chance for Arthur and I to catch up and look back on some memories he has from his long career as a royal photographer. When was it you started, Arthur?
Oh, I started in 1977 was the first royal tour I did to
Wow.
Yugoslavia. I mean, I didn't have a clue what I was doing then, but you know, it was exciting times. I've never forgotten it. I ended up not getting very much in the paper except for the last day. And he went to look at this art gallery, and I almost never went in there. It was so boring. But I went in there, and Prince Charles looked at this nude painting, and I took a picture of looking at this painting, and he said to me, "Why don't you put that on page 3?" We put it on page 1, sir.
That's it, isn't it? Often it's the engagements that you're not expecting to be much.
And I tell young photographers, you know, you never know till you get there what it's going to turn out. You know, I remember once we're at the end of the Golden Jubilee tour in Ottawa, and the Queen was going to plant a tree, and ITN went to the pictures, BBC went to the pictures, but I went to the garden, the planting, and it was boring. But as she left, the Queen was asked by this French-Canadian Olympian, "Madame, may I have a picture taken, please, with you?" And she said yes. And as he stood next to the Queen, and his wife was taking the picture, he put his arm around her and gave her a squeeze. And I've got this back view of the picture. And the moment the Queen left, I rushed across, got the wife's film, got it processed, rang Tom Bradby, and I rang the BBC to say, "Look, see, you know, the Canadian television have got the footage. I've got the film, but this is where they're staying." And of course, I remember one of the crew saying, just as they were going to watch my big fat Greek wedding, so just as the film started, you rang, we all had a chair out the cinema. But anyway, they got good stuff because they had to see me see stuff, and it made a double page spread in the Sun. You know, I got a picture and put it together, and it was just, you know, so you never know, and that's what I think is one of the joys of our job. You know, you can, whatever the job, the most important thing is the member of the royal family that's there. And I mean, I always said if Prince Charles breaks his finger, it's the splash. You know, anything that happens unusually makes the paper. So, I mean, you know, it's you never know till you go. That's the rule.
Never know. I'll add that was before my time. I wasn't at the pictures.
Yeah, the pictures were great, I can tell you. Yeah.
And how many? I was reading on your Twitter earlier. Just tell us how many weddings, births, funerals it is you've done to date.
I've done a few. I've done, I think, about 7 weddings. I don't count Harry's wedding because he didn't give me a very good pass. In fact, I was so far away, and I promise you, I was there. Windsor 3 days, never got a picture published because it was just all done by the Press Association. They did a very good job. I'm not denying that, but I felt pretty upset about that. So I didn't count that one, but you know, I've done William's wedding, I've done Prince Charles, both these weddings, Princess Anne's second wedding, go on, Fergie's wedding. I mean, Prince Edward's wedding. I went over to Michael Kent, her wedding in Vienna, registry office in Vienna. I did that. Yeah, and Prince Michael kissed his wife, and I missed the kiss and asked him to do it again, and he did. So yeah, I've done a load, and funerals. Well, of course, the Duke's one was the last one, which was the most memorable for me because I had a great position. I was in this little pillar box that was by the side of the main doors as the Marines carried the coffin up the steps. I had that perfect position. And although I was in there for 3 hours and it was really hot, it was a great position. I got a great picture. So, and you know, in this business, you never remember the standing around for hours, how cold you were, or how hot you were, or how thirsty you were, or how hungry you were. You only remember the great picture you got or the great story you got. And it's funny, that's it, isn't it? That's what this business is all about. You go out to get the picture. When you get it and you see it published, it's just instant reward, and you just forget all the problems. You never forget that hanging around at airports, missing flights, queues at passport control. You never remember that. You only remember.
That was incredible, though. You were literally in a sort of
a little pillar box,
weren't you? Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
And had the Duke. I mean, the Duke obviously played such a huge part.
The thing was, he had a great life, the Duke, and in fact, then next week I think he would have been 100. Next Thursday, I think.
Next Thursday.
He would have been 100. You know.
Did he have that? Did he have that in mind in his plans? Having you in the.
They say he planned everything, but I suspect, I don't know, that I've never done that position before for anything, for the any of the ceremonies at Windsor. That's never happened before. And they did a brilliant job. You would never know unless you were told it was a position. They did it so well. But, I think people said, oh, did you get that from there? No, I got it in the ballot. I would never claim anything but I got it in the ballot. Whatever people might think or say, that's the truth. But when I got it, once you knew the position, then you start to worry because, you think, and you can't, once you're in there, you're in there. And 3 hours is a long time to be in there. So you have to take everything, and I mean everything, for being in there for that long, including a thick coat, which I didn't need. When I went in, it was cold, but when I come out, it was really warm. But
to feel that close to
it was unreal. And I had a couple of moments of panic because just before they arrived, the cortege, all the soldiers took up position, but I think they knew that they couldn't block this one position because I had a household cavalryman there and I had an RAF man there, but I got this perfect view. And there's a lot of talk that week about Harry coming over for it, but on that day it didn't seem to matter. They were all bit players. It was the Duke and the Queen. The picture of the Queen and that picture of her sitting in the church on her own. Oh, it makes me cry when I think about it. And that picture in the car with a mask on and looking so sad. And of course, the Marines carrying the coffin. It was just that was for me. It was no more than that. It was the end of a great life, really. And he was a great guy. He was a great consul. He was a great ambassador. He was a top man. So as he got older, and I remember doing that last engagement at the Windsor Castle when he handed over it was Colonel-in-Chief of the Rifles.
Rifles, yeah.
And he handed it over to the Duchess Camilla, and I was there that day, and the press secretary said, I don't know if it's going to be here 2 minutes, 1 minute, or 20 minutes. He had no idea. And he came out and he was there at least 20 minutes, and he did everything the way he used to talk to the soldiers, chat to them. It was just like he hadn't aged a bit, a little bit creaky as he walked down the steps, but that was all.
It was remarkable, wasn't it? He was sort of.
It was, yeah.
Ramrod straight, still walking down those steps, joking with them. He really wanted to be there. Incredible at that age.
He was, and the Marines carrying him up them steps, made me think. Obviously, they were there for that minute's silence. And he was their Captain General until he retired. And they must have, someone said to me, carrying that lead-lined oak coffin. And then someone else said to me, yeah, but the Marines, they was never going to flinch. They would die rather than make one sort of wrong movement. So it was really, as I said in my tweet, I said I was just proud to be there, to do that. And that's what my life's been. It's been a kind of front row seat on things like that. With the Queen Mother's funeral, I did that, Prince William's wedding and Prince Charles's 2 weddings. I mean, you're there, you see it all. You don't only just see the bride and the groom and that, but you see the guests arriving, and Diana's funeral, God, I remember that, and people crying and sobbing. I mean, not the people I'm photographing, the people around me, they were just terribly upset. So
And one of those that you had a front row seat for was, of course, Princess Diana and Prince Charles's wedding in 1981. And that iconic dress by David and Elizabeth Emmanuel is now on display at Kensington Palace in the Orangery. And it's on display, it goes on display today, Thursday, and will be on display until January 2022 with its 25-foot long train, longest in royal history. And I was lucky enough to have a sneak preview of the exhibition yesterday before it opened to the public, and spoke to the curator, Claudia Acott-Williams, and also the designer of the dress, David Emmanuel.
Really, how it all happened was, it's really a melange of people. Diana, my ex-wife Elizabeth, and myself, and a melange of ideas. When she came into my studio, it was like, oh, try this bodice, try this sleeve, and we worked together to create this. Well, we promised to make her a fairy tale princess. We kept it kind of traditional, but we were aware that it was going to be in St. Paul's. Now, you couldn't have done a quiet little subtle dress. It had to be, St. Paul's is vast. And it actually took, we measured, took 3 minutes to walk down that aisle. So it was perfect, it was aching for a train. And it was such fun. And then, of course, immediately afterwards, we then did a lot of her royal tours. So we had a good relation, and it's hard. We're standing here outside Kensington Palace, just the other side of there, that's where she lived. So we would have often calls, oh, David, I'm sorry, can you do me a dress? It would be Monday morning, so we'd race round, have a quick chat, where are you going, sketch something, and then we'd have to deliver it on the Friday because that's when she was going. So you would jump through hoops for Diana because she was just so kind. And she always, I think this is the show of the token of the woman, she always wrote a little written note saying, thank you so much, I know you were busy, blah, blah, blah. But look what she did go on to do. Extraordinary. I mean, she's a global icon, I would say, for taste, beauty, and compassion. And I think that was seen. That's, I think, why the public hooked into her.
Diana was definitely involved in the creation of these garments, but I think her real strength was in choosing designers that really understood their craft, understood that her clothing needed to perform specific sort of functions and convey particular messages. Elizabeth and David were very aware that this dress was going to be showcased against the backdrop of St. Paul's Cathedral, which is in itself a sort of monumental building, and that first view that onlookers would have and the television cameras would have would be of her walking up the steps and into the building. So they designed this 25-foot long train to make a real visual impact. And before the wedding, they'd gone and they'd measured the width of the nave so that they knew exactly what kind of space they needed to fill. And then we've got this wonderful, quite dramatic 80s silhouette to make sure that she was really visible.
I mean, it was extraordinarily large, wasn't it?
It was, and in fact, when I had the choice of passes for that wedding, I had the Buckingham Palace, the Victoria Memorial, or St. Paul's, and I chose St. Paul's because I thought it was all going to be about the dress. And my position was quite high, and once I got into the position, I was a bit disappointed. But what saved the day for me was that train, because as she came down the steps, the train was up almost the whole of the steps. And a sub-editor at The Sun put a brilliant headline on. He put, "The train now standing at St. Paul's," and of course it was just wonderful. But the wedding dress, of course, the wedding dress went on display afterwards, and people paid, well, the wedding presents plus the dress. And I remember we moved into our new offices in Wapping, and we were holding a tombola for some charity, and I can't remember what, but I think maybe a journalist charity or children's charity, and we all had to sort of write to our people, our contacts, so we can get some stuff donated. And I wrote to Diana and said, look, can we have something that we can sort of sell at the tombola? And she wrote me back and she said, I can't give you anything, but I'm going to send you a check. And she sent me a check, quite a substantial amount, and it was from the wedding dress fund. So all that money that she took from the people for going to see the wedding dress and that things, she was giving to charity, and one of the charities was our tombola. So, that's, and I've never told anybody how much it was to this day, because, you know, I just said I never would. And she asked me not to, and I wouldn't. But it was at that time, 1986, it was quite a lot of money in today's, you know, today perhaps not so much, but then it was. So, you know, the wedding dress has kind of been lucky for me in two ways. Once I got a great picture, and secondly, I've got some money for the tombola.
When you saw her getting out of that carriage, though, I mean, the dress just kept on coming, didn't it? It just, there was so much of it.
It was, and in many ways, that dress, of course, that year, since the engagement was announced in February, everybody was worried about the dress. In fact, so much that the manual said they made two dresses in case one got spotted, and, you know, someone put a picture of it in the paper, they'd have a backup dress to fall back on. And I mean, that's the length they went to keep that a secret. And she was stunning. It looked like it was getting out of that tiny carriage that should have brought her from Clarence House. It did look a bit creased, but I thought that was and I saw the man who was trying to smooth it all out. But you know, there were seamstresses on duty that day, that anything had to be done, they could quickly go in and put a stitch in or a safety pin in to sort of correct it. You know, there was nothing, no stone unturned. Everything was there just to make that dress look the best thing ever. And of course it was. And but no one remembers anything but that dress on that day, I'm afraid. You know, and the kiss on the balcony, which I missed because I wasn't there. But after
the pressure
that,
on those days. Do you feel pressure on those big days? I remember years ago when I used to work for the Press Association, and before the Duke and Duchess of Cambridge got married, John Stillwell, their then royal photographer and great friend of yours, he was at the back of the newsroom practicing for that balcony moment. He said the pressure is, you know, of that moment is huge.
It is, yeah, it is, and you only get one chance to get it right. And but the thing was, all those, you know, those jobs are pressure. I mean, the Duke was pressure. You know, I mean, there's no way you can say I didn't. You know, your whole reputation stands on that job. So the same as the wedding. I mean, to get. Obviously, I had a good pass for William's wedding, but I wanted to be in the forecourt of Buckingham Palace next to John, and finally they gave me that pass, and it was wonderful. But then the responsibility was huge, and of course, not only did he kiss his bride once, he kissed her twice. So for me, that's sometimes necessary, and it really worked out so well. And of course, it was a page one picture, and that's what every press photographer wants, to get their picture on page one. And of course, that wedding, I mean, I especially remember, because as I was packing up, the press secretary whispered in my ear, hang on a minute. What's that? So just hang on a minute. And then of course, William came out driving the Prince of Wales' sports car with it all, you know, balloons on it, and just got married. And as he was coming out, the car was stalling, and then he finally got going. And we did some nice pictures. And it was at a garden party with the Prince of Wales, I don't know, probably May, June, July, sometime like that. I said, why was the car stopping, starting? He said, he forgot to take the handbrake off. As simple as that. But so that was a lovely wedding. And of course, Prince Charles's wedding to Camilla was a really nice day. I mean, that was postponed 24 hours because the Pope died and the Prince had to represent the Queen at the Pope's funeral. So, I mean, no one else can do that, but a member of the royal family can put your wedding back 24 hours. And everybody says, yes, that's no problem. We can change everything.
We can change everything. And you photographed Diana, didn't you, from the moment she came onto the scene right up until 97. How did she change in that time as a photographer and someone that kind of got to know her?
Well, she was always very pleasant to me, even when she was worked in the nursery. I remember there's 2 occasions when I first found her at a polo match. I asked if I could photograph her, and she posed for me. Same at the nursery. I asked if she did, and we had a very good. You know, I was always polite and never rude, and she was great. And I mean, she was from the very beginning. She embraced that job. I remember one of the first things we went to Wales. About 3 days in Wales, and you know what it's like in Wales. Rained, and all you Welsh people, it does sometimes, the sun does come out sometimes, but it certainly rained those 3 days, and poor Diana was dripping wet, but she didn't stop. No umbrella. She was into the crowd. She was just absolutely full on, and it was just lovely to see that. And then, of course, very soon after that, she became pregnant with William, and then, of course, the William was born, and I remember being outside the hospital, and we'd all gone. It was funny. It was about 20 people there then. All the papers and 2 television crews, BBC and ITV, and we went for a curry, and we ordered this huge curry, about 6 of us. And the reporter, Harry Arnold, said, "I'm just going to ring the palace before we eat, just see." And we heard him on the phone going, "Is that right, Michael? What, 20 minutes? Yeah, okay, fine." And we went, tore up. Harry came back. There was this pile of food, and wait of giving him the bill. But, you know, it was that. And of course, then Prince Charles came out, and he was so excited. And it was none of that behind the barriers. We just jumped over the barriers, went over there, shook his hand, congratulated, did pictures of a reporter shaking his hand, and he was so happy. It's amazing. And next day she came out, you know, which was unheard of. But a lot of people missed that, because a lot of people thought that Charles was due to play polo that day. He was going to go and play the match. And they went there, but I didn't. I stayed at the hospital and got that picture of William coming out in his mother's arms. So that's and I think of William now, and I see him. I think he's 40 next year, and I remember the day he was coming out in his mother's arms. So, and then of course we went to Kensington Palace a few times. And Dinah invited us down to take pictures of William when he was a young lad. So the great memories, great pictures, and they were pressure pictures, those, because like William running around the gardens at Kensington Palace, and those were before all, you know, sort of automatic lenses and automatic cameras. Everything had to be done manually, and you were sort of, that was stressful, but great memories and great pictures. I mean, great pictures, and page 1 pictures, which is what you're in this business for. Get on page 1.
And this year would have been Princess Diana's 60th year, and the long-awaited statue is due to be unveiled at Kensington Palace. And of course, the hope is that, you know, for a lot of people, they really want to see Princes William and Harry there, don't they, for that unveiling?
I think that'll happen, but what I do feel is that Harry would come alone. I don't think he'll come with Meghan. I don't know what excuse she could make this time, but certainly she may come, I don't know. But, you know, I'm afraid this, you know, decamp into America and saying all this stuff on these TV shows, which was why they're getting the millions of dollars, because, you know, it's these fly on the wall things. And there's a big resentment built up here towards that. And I mean, Harry came for the funeral, and he came in and he went again. I mean, and of course, there's lots of, and there's a lot of grief between him and his brother. They just don't want to talk to each other. And there was an attempt by Kate to sort of make some sort of reconciliation, but it didn't work. And that's sad, because I've worked with Harry. I was there when Harry was born. I mean, I've watched that lad grow up. He was so much different from William. He's so impetuous. He was so gung-ho, go for it. I mean, when they learned to ski, within 10 minutes, Harry was flying, and William was still hanging on to the instructor. That's the difference in the lads. But the difference now is, of course, that William has become an incredible statesman, as well as our future king. He's become an amazing statesman. I mean, we've done two serious trips recently, one to Pakistan, which was, you know, a country that, I mean, no royal would have been to for a while. It had its problems. And of course, to Israel, where that was a minefield, but he went through that minefield with great care and great statesman. And that really impressed me. And that's when I realized that William has accepted this job and accepted his role. You know, there was a long time when I felt he didn't want to do it. I mean, those early days, I remember him sort of saying to me once, "No more pictures, Arthur, no more pictures, Arthur." He couldn't cope with it. But he's just become a colossus. And of course, he's got this fabulous family and a wonderful wife who is, it just seems to get everything right, you know, and never fazed by any criticisms. You know, whatever they say, she just acts with great dignity and charm.
They're a great team, aren't they, when you watch them together?
They're a top team, and they're a joy to work with too. Absolute joy. And of course, that's the future, and the future is really, really great. And of course, the way they're rearing their children, I mean, it's just wonderful. I mean, you know, we used to say years ago about we don't want our royals like the Dutch going around on bicycles, but I mean, William and Catherine and all the kids now go out on their bicycles. They're a family that just trying to live a normal life, and they're without the problem of this continual media, which of course William and Harry had to put up with. And I mean, I remember those days so much when he started at the nursery, and when it was the school play or the sports day, we were all there. I remember once at the sports day at Richmond Park, and the school shut the gates, and we got these huge builders' trestles delivered to the site. We were on these big trestles overlooking, filming Diana running in the mother's race. Those were days when those days no longer happen, and in many ways it's for the best, because William got a big inferior complex. Harry couldn't care less, but William got a big problem over it, and he didn't want it for his own children. And I think now, looking back, I think he's right. Yeah, it was wrong.
They've managed it quite well, haven't they, in terms of taking their own photographs of the children and giving them to us. So there's a little bit, you know, you get to see a bit of the children, but it's on their terms, and it's also them taking the photos.
Yeah, but also I'm very a great admirer of Kate's photography. I mean, she's grasped it very quickly. And I mean, the early pictures, I don't know if you remember the first picture of the family was taken by the father, and the dog was in the picture, and the only thing sharp in the picture was the dog. I mean, and I always said, so don't join the Michael Middleton School of Photography. But Kate, obviously, she got some lessons. I think she's a patron or part of the Royal Photographic Society, and she did some really nice stuff. She photographed a Holocaust survivor and a family, did a brilliant job. And I've recently photographed a Holocaust survivor and his family for an exhibition later this year in August at the Imperial War Museum. And you know, I was kind of not inspired by what she did, but I found out she spent 2 hours with the family beforehand, talking to them, getting to know them. She lit it beautifully, and she got it really sort of, it was just a lovely picture. And I told her that, and she said, well, I still feel I have a lot more to learn. I said, no, you did a brilliant job. But the picture that I love most that she's done is the William and the 3 children on the swing.
Yeah, I love that one. I love that picture.
I would have killed to have taken that picture. Everybody's laughing at their mum, and you know that only a mother or a father could get that picture, and it's an absolute winner.
Yeah, they're totally natural, aren't they? And it's a great picture.
But Charlotte with her arm around Daddy, and you know, Daddy's girl. That was a lovely picture. I was so full of praise for her on that, and of course they share them with us, and it's a good deal. I mean, why do you want to buy paparazzi pictures at huge amounts of money when she's giving you this beautiful stuff, and it just fills the papers, and I think that's been a great compromise. And
yeah,
you know, people say to me, well, it's put you out of a job. I said, well, not really, because you know, you could say that about a TV cameraman when someone films Lee Rigby's killers on their mobile phone. You know, that's what you need. Everybody's now a citizen photographer. We've got to accept that, and everybody can take pictures. And with these phones now, they're superb quality, and everybody can produce this stuff. And we know when there's an earthquake or a riot, it's this mobile phone stuff. It's gripping, and it started with the bus and the tube bombs in London, where you saw the terror from these phones, and so, you know, we've all got to accept that photography is simple now. With these digital and phones and everything. And so, you know, everybody's a citizen snapper, a citizen journalist. But Kate has got to take it a lot further. She's really worked on it. Her pictures are beautifully composed, they're beautifully lit. She just does it, and she's got the best subject in the world, of course.
One we all want to see.
But she delivers, and And I'm just really, I'm a kind of fan of her now. I'm a fan of not just photography, but the way she's totally made that role just so brilliant. She's done such just a great job being the Duchess of Cambridge, and one day she'll be the Princess of Wales, and one day she'll be the Queen, and she's just perfect for it. Just perfect.
So talking of the Queen, this week we had an announcement on plans for her Platinum Jubilee, which is next year. So she will become the first British monarch to have spent 70 years on the throne when it's the 6th of February next year. It's an extraordinarily long time. And the plans include a 4-day bank holiday weekend from Thursday the 2nd to Sunday the 5th of June. And we'll have the Trooping the Colour back in London for the first time since 2019. We'll have beacons lit around the UK and Commonwealth. We'll have a service of Thanksgiving at St Paul's, the Derby at Epsom. How could we not have some horse racing? A concert at the Palace, a big Jubilee lunch, and a pageant on the backdrop of Buckingham Palace. So it sounds like a full weekend of festivities. You must have done
it. Busy. I mean, I remember that was the Gold Jubilee, was that a pageant past Buckingham Palace. The concert, I remember the concert, Brian May playing God Save the Queen on the rooftop of Buckingham Palace. And I saw some great bands there. I mean, we saw Cliff Richards singing Move It, which was brilliant. We saw Ozzy Osbourne on the stage. We saw Paul McCartney doing Hey Jude, everybody. So it was a great concert. I actually got a ticket for my wife as well. We were there, and it was it was a brilliant concert. The second concert, which was actually outside in the mall, on the backdrop was the Victoria Monument, wasn't as good actually. I thought they tried to do something different in it, although the artists were just as good. I mean, Elton John and Tom Jones, and they were all there contributing. Everybody wants to be there. But the one in the Palace was fantastic. You know, all the chairs on the lawn there. It was had a wonderful evening, and the Queen came down. But the highlight for me was when the Prince of Wales came on and said, "Your Majesty," and then he says, "Mummy." And he did it in 2002, and he did it in 2012, and I suspect he'll do it next year as well. So that's that's something to look forward to, especially the Derby. I mean, the Derby's the day after tomorrow, Saturday, and no royals going. And of course, some of the best pictures I've ever taken of the Queen at the Derby, especially when she's had a runner in last furlong going for the line, and she's really given it that. And she's another time she was obviously someone had told her a joke. She's laughing like unbelievably hilariously. Another time I got the Duke sort of going like that as the horses go to the line. But the best of all was when Mrs. Middleton, Kate's mother, Carol, she had a horse, and she was at the Derby, and with a great bit of help from one of the stewards there, I found where she was, and it was the race before the Derby, and of course her horse was pretty good, and it looked like it was going to win, and she is screaming like Jesus, screaming. Got these great pictures, never published, but I sent them to her. But so the Derby's been very lucky for me for pictures.
So Arthur, you were telling me earlier that you had a good story about a Jubilee that we were going to save for the podcast.
Did I really? Oh yeah, it was the Queen's Silver Jubilee, and I went to a polo match, and she was going to do a big walkabout in London. And I was completely not interested in it at all, because I was obsessed with finding who Prince Charles was going to get married to. I was looking for his bride, and that was my role. And Diana hadn't arrived yet. And so I was at a polo match down in Cirencester, and he was in a rush to get away. And as he turned to say goodbye to his host sitting in his sports car, I noticed he had a big bald spot on the back of his head. And I just photographed it, and then I photographed him in profile. And I didn't say anything to anybody, and I just drove back to London, printed the prints up, and put them in the drawer. So that was on a Sunday. So the Monday, the Queen was going to do the walkabout in London. And I put them in the picture editors drawer, and I got a call the following morning. this is fantastic, he said. I said, but what about the Scrimmage? Don't worry about the Silver Jubilee. He said, this is what we're going to go on tomorrow. And so the Queen did this walkabout London, and the picture the next day on the front of the Sun was this picture of Prince Charles's bald spot. And the picture, the headline was, Prince Charles, oops, Charles, there's a patch in your thatch. But let me go on. So 3 days later, I'm at the Smith's Lawn for another polo match, and this policeman said he wants to have a word with you about that. Oh, okay. So
I bet he did. I bet he did.
You're the man that photographed the back of my head. I said, yes, sir. I said, you've been getting a lot of stick about it. He said, well, not really. Well, what do you mean? I said, well, you know, we were selling 3.5 million papers a day there. I said, well, 3.5 million papers sold, you know, with that on the front. I said, a lot of people would now know about it. He said, that's probably the reason why wherever I go, everybody's photographing the back of my head. And so, you know, the following day, that was it. And then, of course, the Queen's Jubilee just passed us by. But I'll never forget the 50th. The 50th was the best. You know, we went all around the country. We went Jamaica, we went New Zealand. We flew from Jamaica to New Zealand with the Queen on her plane. It was a brilliant trip, everything we did. And 2012 was lovely too. I went with William to Malaysia and Tuvalu, and I went with William to Jamaica. I mean, that was a fabulous tour. Brazil. I mean, he was just a great person to work with, Harry. I just miss him so much. He was like when he walked in the room, the sort of room lit up, you know. He could say something funny or say something a little bit caustic, but you could always have your say back with him. And I just miss him. I just wish he was back here working for the Queen. I really do. So a lot to look forward to the Jubilee. We've got the statue unveiling to look forward to as well, with Diana's 60th birthday.
And we found out today that that the Queen is going to meet Joe Biden, the US president, when he's over. She'll meet him next Sunday, the 13th. So
that would be lovely. I mean, I'm a great fan of that man. I think he's been brilliant. But my big wish for 2021 isn't for the Jubilee. It's for that William and Harry would resolve their differences, and Harry would feel they was welcome to come back anytime and come back many times. You know.
Well, fingers crossed they can patch things up. Arthur, thank you so much for joining me. I could listen to you all day. Your stories are amazing, and it's been lovely to see you. And I hope maybe we'll get to go on tour in the not too distant future, because I really miss those.
I think there's going to be some good ones, I think, you know. So I think we've just got to wait till everybody's jabbed. I mean, that's another thing, you know. That's when I got the second jab, I felt like life was getting back to normal, and then we keep getting these little setbacks, don't we? Which is pretty annoying. But please God, it won't be too long. We'll be on the road again together.
Hopefully not. Thank you so much, Arthur.